Mind explaining what you're doing sitting out here like this?
Just chilling, enjoying the day.
Is there a problem, officer?
Got a call about two people hanging around this spot for a while. Residents don't usually sit on this exact bench for hours on a cold weekday. It makes folks uneasy, you get what I'm saying?
We're not hanging around. We live 5 minutes from here. This is a public park.
For nearly 17 years, Officer Raymond Kesler had walked the streets of Carver County like he owned them. 5 earlier formal complaints for discriminatory stops and verbal abuse had been quietly shelved by a department far more invested in closing ranks than in delivering justice. His favorite hunting ground was always the same: quiet, tree-lined Birchwood Commons, the kind of well-kept public square surrounded by million-dollar homes where almost everyone was white. On July 9, 2022, right in the middle of a warm Saturday patrol, he locked eyes on Jamal and Aisha Carter sitting side by side on one of the stone benches near the central fountain. In that instant, Kesler decided they were either up to no good or simply didn't belong, probably both. "I don't know what little story you two are selling today," he barked as he closed the distance, right hand already drifting toward his belt. "But this whole romantic picnic vibe isn't buying you any time. You're either scoping houses for a crew or waiting on a drop. Either way, this isn't your park." He accused them outright of trespassing, loitering with intent to commit a felony, and hinted they'd both be in cuffs inside 10 minutes if they didn't vacate immediately. What Kesler could not possibly see beneath their light summer clothes were 2 crisp ATF badges, 2 holstered service weapons, and 2 seasoned federal agents who now had him on tape for multiple violations of 18 U.S.C. Section 242 that would cost him his badge, and quite possibly his freedom, before the sun went down. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever been profiled, followed, or treated like you didn't belong somewhere you had every right to be? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. Jamal Carter, 41, had spent 13 years inside the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, most of it in the violent crime impact teams running long-term undercover buys and stings that took down multi-state firearms trafficking rings across the Great Lakes region. Next to him was his wife of 10 years, Aisha Carter, 38, a highly regarded special agent in ATF's Professional Standards Division. She had personally investigated and helped prosecute dozens of officers for exactly the kind of color of law abuses they were about to live through. They had driven 3 hours from Indianapolis on one of their rare overlapping days off to revisit Birchwood Commons, the same park where Aisha used to read books under the big willow tree while visiting her grandparents every summer growing up. Jamal had just finished telling her a funny story about their youngest daughter's latest school project when Aisha's smile froze. Her eyes flicked past his shoulder. "We've got incoming," she said under her breath, the exact phrase they both used on ops when trouble appeared. Officer Raymond Kesler was 49, a man who peaked early and then flatlined. He had failed the sergeant's exam twice and the lieutenant's test once. His personnel jacket, the one his chain of command never wanted to open, contained a 2015 complaint from a mixed-race family he followed home and photographed for suspicious activity, a 2018 detention of 2 black college students sitting in their own parked car studying for finals, a 2020 stop and frisk of a South Asian software engineer walking home from the train station at 7 p.m. A 2021 verbal warning, only a warning, after he told a Native American woman she looked like she was looking for trouble while she waited for an Uber outside a coffee shop. Every time the department response was the same: verbal counseling, a 2-hour online implicit bias module, and back on the street. Kesler had long since concluded the rules didn't really apply to him. "Afternoon," he said, planting himself directly in their sunlight. "I need ID from both of you right now," Jamal answered first, voice calm and even. "Is there a reason you're asking, officer?" "That's what I'm here to find out," Kesler shot back. "We've had a string of daytime burglaries, vehicle prowls, and hand-to-hand deals in this square over the last month. You two don't match the usual crowd that sits here reading or walking dogs. So yeah, I've got questions." Aisha felt Jamal's knee lightly tap hers under the bench, their private signal for "stay cool, document everything." Without breaking eye contact with Kesler, she slowly reached for her phone, placed it face down on the stone beside her water bottle, angled the rear camera toward him, and with one smooth motion started both video and voice memo. The screen went black, but the tiny red dot in the corner confirmed it was rolling. "We're just enjoying a quiet afternoon in a public park," Aisha said, measured and professional. "We live in this country, we pay taxes. This bench doesn't have a dress code or a skin tone requirement." Kesler's upper lip curled. "I don't know what little story you two are selling today, but this whole romantic picnic vibe isn't buying you any time. I've watched people like you come through here before, sit for 10 minutes, take pictures of houses, leave. Next thing you know, windows are smashed and jewelry's gone. Or maybe you're waiting on someone with a backpack full of product. Either way, I'm not playing. He took one step closer, boots scuffing gravel. Here's how this works. You hand over identification. You tell me where you're really from and what you're really doing. Then you leave. If I have to ask again, you're both getting walked out in steel. Clear. Jamal felt the familiar tightening in his chest, not fear, but the cold burn of recognition. In 13 years, he had read hundreds of 18 U.S.C. Section 242 affidavits describing this exact pattern. Baseless approach, right arrow, vague criminal accusations, right arrow, demand for papers, right arrow, escalation, when rights are asserted. He had just never expected to be the affiant. Aisha stayed perfectly still, phone capturing every word, every hand gesture, every shift in posture. Both of them were already mentally drafting the 302 forms they would type up the second this ended. What Officer Raymond Kesler still didn't grasp, as he stood there puffed up with the petty authority he was seconds away from losing forever, was that he had just threatened to arrest two of the ATF's most decorated agents. And every syllable was being crystal clear high-definition video and audio evidence of federal civil rights violations. The encounter had only just begun, and it was about to become a career-ender. Before we go any further, if you've ever witnessed or experienced this kind of selective enforcement in your own neighborhood, type, "I've seen it," in the comments. Let's see how common this really is. Officer Raymond Kesler was the textbook example of a cop who had learned that consequences were optional. Born and raised in Carver County, he joined the department straight out of the academy in 2005 at age 28. By 2010, he was already notorious among patrol for his proactive style, which mostly meant stopping anyone who looked out of place in the nicer parts of town. Promotions never came. He bombed the sergeant's written exam in 2012, scored 58%, and again in 2015, 62%. The lieutenant's test in 2019 was even worse. He walked out after 45 minutes. So he stayed on patrol year after year, collecting overtime and building a quiet reputation as the guy you didn't want showing up to your call if you weren't white and wealthy. His internal affairs file, the one that somehow never led to real discipline, told the real story. March 2015, a black father and his teenage son were followed for 6 blocks after leaving a hardware store. Kesler claimed the boy kept looking back suspiciously. No citation, no report, just verbal warning to move along quicker next time. IA called it community engagement. August 2018. 2 Latina women in their early 20s sitting on a park bench eating lunch. Kesler demanded IDs, said they matched the description of 2 females involved in a retail theft ring at the mall. They were dental assistants on break. He let them go after 20 minutes with no apology, complaint closed as unsubstantiated. October 2020, a young Asian man jogging with earbuds. Kesler pulled up, lights on, said, "You fit the description of someone who ran from a traffic stop earlier." The man had been running the same 5,000 loop for 2 years. Bodycam mysteriously malfunctioned for the first 3 minutes. Verbal counseling issued. February 2021, a Native American delivery driver waiting in his van for a customer to answer the door. Kesler banged on the window, accused him of casing the neighborhood. Driver showed the app with the active order. Kesler told him to hurry up and get out of here before I find a reason to tow you. 1-day suspension, served on a weekend. He was already off. Every single time the department's pattern was identical. Minimal paper trail, no sustained findings, back to the street within days. Kesler internalized the message early. As long as he didn't cause a visible scandal or get caught on undeniable video, the blue wall would hold. By the summer of 2022, he had racked up 48 hours of street time in Birchwood Commons alone. He knew every mailbox, every landscaping truck schedule, every dog walker's name. He also knew exactly which benches felt wrong when occupied by certain faces. July 9th was a perfect day for it. 82 degrees F, light breeze, mostly sunny, weekend crowd thin because half the rich families were at their lake houses. Kesler was cruising in his black and white Ford Interceptor utility, windows down, radio low, looking for his next contact. At 2:47 p.m., he spotted Jamal and Aisha Carter on the curved granite bench facing the fountain. Jamal wore a plain gray t-shirt, navy shorts, white sneakers. Aisha had on a light yellow sundress, sandals, hair in a loose ponytail. They each held an iced coffee from the cafe across the street. No backpacks, no tools, no furtive glances at houses, just 2 people talking and laughing. To Kesler, that was suspicious enough. He parked 80 yards away, killed the engine, and walked over at a deliberate pace, the slow, boots-on-gravel approach he'd perfected to make people tense before he even spoke. At 2:49 p.m., he was standing over them, blocking the sun, shadow falling across their faces. "Afternoon," he repeated, louder this time. "I need to see some identification, both of you. Hands where I can see them." Jamal didn't flinch. "Can you tell me what this is about, officer?" Kesler's jaw tightened. He hated being questioned first. Burglaries have been up 40% in this zip code since April. Vehicle break-ins, package thefts, even a couple of garage prowls. You two sitting here for the last 25 minutes looking around taking your time doesn't add up to a normal Saturday hangout. So yeah, ID. Now, Aisha's phone was already rolling video from 2:48 and 12 seconds, crystal clear, timestamped. She kept it angled perfectly. Kesler's face, badge number 617, name tag, the whole scene. "We've been here maybe 15 minutes, Jamal said evenly. "We're not looking at houses, we're not taking photos, we're just sitting. This is a public park." Kesler stepped closer, boots now 6 inches from the bench edge. "You don't get to decide what's suspicious. I do. And right now you're both suspicious. So either you give me ID voluntarily or I detain you until I can run you. Your choice." Aisha spoke next, voice calm but edged with steel. "Officer Kesler, you have no reasonable, articulable suspicion of any crime. You've made no specific observations that would justify a Terry stop. You're detaining us based on appearance alone." The mention of Terry v. Ohio made Kessler's eyes narrow. "You a lawyer now?" "No," Aisha replied, "but I know the law and so do you." Kesler unclipped his radio. "Control, Unit 617. I've got 2 at Birchwood Commons, bench by the fountain, refusing to ID possible casing activity, requesting a second unit for cover." The dispatcher acknowledged. In the distance, another siren faintly started up, backup rolling code 3 from 3 miles out. Jamal and Aisha exchanged the briefest glance. They both knew the playbook now. Kesler was building a paper trail to justify escalation. The longer this went, the deeper the hole he dug. Before we go any further, if you think an officer should lose his job the first time he profiles someone based on race, type justice in the comments right now. Kesler crossed his arms, smirking. "Backup's 2 minutes out. You can sit here quiet or you can make this harder, up to you." What he still didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that the calm black couple in front of him weren't civilians at all. They were federal agents with combined 23 years of experience dismantling exactly his kind of abuse. And every second of his performance was being preserved in 4,000. The siren grew louder. Yeri 3/7, the backup unit, a marked Chevy Tahoe, pulled up to the Birchwood Commons entrance at exactly 2:52 p.m., lights flashing but no siren. Out stepped Officer Lena Vasquez, 34, an 8-year veteran who had crossed paths with Kesler on dozens of shifts. She knew his MO all too well. The suspicious persons, calls that almost always boiled down to nothing more than his gut feelings about who belonged in upscale spots like this. As she approached the bench area, she clocked the scene immediately, the Carters standing calmly, hands visible, no signs of agitation or flight risk. Kesler, on the other hand, looked wired, arms still crossed like he was bracing for a fight. "What's the situation, Kesler?" Vasquez asked, her tone neutral but her eyes scanning everyone. She nodded politely at Jamal and Aisha, a small gesture of de-escalation that Kesler noticeably ignored. "These two have been here acting evasive," Kesler said, voice clipped. "No ID, questioning every word I say. I think they're tied to the rash of daytime thefts, maybe scouting for a crew. Called it in as possible 10-91 with narcotics overlay just in case." Vasquez's brow furrowed slightly. A 10-91 was code for suspicious activity. Tacking on narcotics was Kessler's way of inflating things. She looked at the Carters again, mid-30s to early 40s, well-dressed for a casual day, no bags, no tools, no sweat. They didn't match any bolo she'd heard on the radio that week. "Have they broken any laws?" she asked Kesler point-blank, keeping her hand away from her gear. "Loitering with intent, trespass in a high-crime area," he replied, but even he seemed to hear how thin it sounded. "Public square, middle of the day," Vasquez muttered under her breath, loud enough for him to catch. Jamal saw the opening. He and Aisha had let this play out for 3 full minutes now, enough rope for Kesler to hang himself completely. Aisha's phone had captured it all. The radio call with false implications, the continued detention without cause, the body language of intimidation. Time to flip the script. "Officer Vasquez," Jamal said, his voice shifting from polite civilian to command presence. "My name is Jamal Carter. This is my wife, Aisha Carter. Before this escalates any further, there's critical information you and Officer Kesler need to be aware of." Kesler wheeled on him. "I said hands visible and mouth shut until I—" "Kesler, ease up," Vasquez interjected, her cop instincts flaring. Something about the Carters' demeanor screamed, "Not your average stop." She held up a hand to Kesler and nodded at Jamal. "Go ahead, sir, what's this information?" Jamal moved slowly, telegraphing every action. "I'm reaching into my back pocket for my credentials." His fingers pulled out a slim black bifold wallet. He flipped it open. Gold badge gleaming on one side, ID card with the ATF seal on the other. "I'm Special Agent Jamal Carter, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, Violent Crimes Task Force," he stated, authority ringing clear. This is Special Agent Aisha Carter, ATF Professional Standards. For the last 5 minutes, Officer Kesler has been conducting an unlawful detention, engaging in racial profiling, making baseless criminal accusations, and violating multiple sections of Title 18 United States Code, including deprivation of rights under color of law. Aisha mirrored the move, producing her own creds. We've documented the entire interaction on video and audio, every threat, every assumption based on our appearance, every false report to dispatch. The blood left Kesler's face in seconds. He stared at the badges like they were grenades. You, what? No, this is a mistake. I was just… Vasquez took 2 steps back, creating distance from Kesler as if he were radioactive. She'd heard rumors about his stops, but pulling this on feds, career suicide. Holy, agents, I just got here. I had no part in the initial contact. We know, Aisha said calmly. You'll be a witness. Badge number, please. And call your shift supervisor now, then the watch commander. This is going federal. Kesler stammered, hands now visibly shaking. Listen, if I'd known you were ATF, I never would've. That's the core issue, Jamal cut in, voice like steel. You didn't do this because you didn't know our jobs. You did it because we're black. And admitting you treat us differently with badges means you think this is fine for everyone else without them. That's not policing. That's predation. The words landed hard. Kesler slumped against a nearby lamppost, 17 years of unchecked power evaporating in under 30 seconds. Vasquez was already on her radio. Dispatch Vasquez. Need Sergeant Hale to Birchwood Commons ASAP. Code 1. And patch me to the lieutenant, priority. In the background, a few passers-by had started filming from afar, phones out, capturing the badges, the pale Kesler, the escalating drama. The Carters stood tall, unflinching. For them, this wasn't just personal, it was professional. They'd built careers ending abuses like this. Today, they were the case study. If stories like this fire you up and make you want change, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the next one. Sergeant Alina Hale arrived at 3:01 p.m., tires screeching as she pulled in. One look at the ATF badges and the playing audio from Aisha's phone and her face hardened. Kesler, stand down. Now. She listened to 90 seconds of the recording, enough to hear the profiling, the threats, the radio fabrication. By 3:05, the watch commander was en route, and the chief's office had been notified. At 3:12 p.m., Kesler was relieved of duty on the spot. Badge confiscated, gun secured in Vasquez's trunk, radio silenced. You're on administrative leave effective immediately, Hale told him. Internal Affairs will be in touch by end of shift. The Carters filed their formal complaint right there, dictating details to Hale while Vasquez took notes. They uploaded the video to a secure ATF server at 3:18 p.m. Kesler's body cam footage was requested immediately. And when pulled later that day, it matched everything. His approach without probable cause, the aggressive stance, the coded racism. By 4:00 p.m., ATF's Office of Professional Responsibility had opened a file. The FBI's Civil Rights Unit was looped in by 4:30, given the potential pattern. A review of Kesler's dash cam and body cam archives from the past 24 months revealed 28 similar stops, all targeting people of color in nice areas, with 0 arrests or citations. 2 days later, on July 11th, Kesler was officially terminated. The IA report cited violations of department policy on bias-free policing, false reporting, and unlawful detentions. But the feds weren't done. By July 15th, DOJ attorneys were reviewing for criminal charges under 18 U.S.C. Section 242. For Jamal and Aisha, driving back to Indianapolis that evening was quiet. They'd won, but the victory felt hollow thinking of Kesler's other victims over 17 years. People without badges, without recourse, just enduring and moving on. Drop a fire in the comments if this made your blood boil. Share if you think every department needs mandatory audits for patterns like this. The moment Sergeant Alina Hale stepped out of her supervisor SUV at 3:01 p.m., the atmosphere in Birchwood Commons shifted from tense standoff to full institutional panic. She was 46, 22 years on the force, and had seen enough badge-flashing disasters to know instantly when something was about to bury the department. One glance at Jamal and Aisha's open ATF credential wallets, gold badges catching the July sun, and her stomach dropped. Agents, she said, voice low and controlled. Sergeant Hale, what exactly happened here? Aisha didn't waste time on pleasantries. She held up her phone, volume up just enough for Hale to hear Kesler's own words looping. You two don't match the usual crowd, either scoping houses or waiting on a drop. Get out before I cuff you both. The recording was timestamped 2:48 and 12 seconds, 2:52 and 58 seconds. Crystal audio, no edits, no gaps. Hale listened for 45 seconds before raising a hand. Enough, I've heard what I need. She turned to Kesler, who was now leaning against a tree like his legs might give out. Raymond. Badge and duty weapon, hand them over right now. Kesler's fingers fumbled. The badge came off first, number 617 clinked against Hale's palm. Then the Glock 17 slide locked back, magazine out, handed but first. Vasquez took custody of the firearm and secured it in her patrol bag. Kesler stood there in his uniform, suddenly looking 10 years older and 20 pounds lighter. "You're suspended without pay, effective immediately," Hale told him. "Report to the Professional Standards Office at 800 tomorrow. Do not discuss this incident with anyone except your union rep and legal counsel." "Understood," he nodded mutely. No argument, no bluster. Just a hollow man who finally realized the wall he'd hidden behind for 17 years had a very large crack in it. Hale turned back to the Carters. "Agents, I need your full statements on scene. I'll have a detective here in under 20 minutes to take formal affidavits. We're also pulling every camera angle we have, body cams, dash cams, park security, even the private doorbell cameras facing the square. Nothing gets deleted," Jamal nodded. "We've already uploaded our primary recording to ATF's evidence portal. Chain of custody starts with us at 2:48 p.m. today. We'll provide login credentials to your IA commander within the hour." By 3:25 p.m., the scene had grown. 2 more patrol units arrived, not for enforcement, but for containment. Yellow "Do Not Cross" tape went up around the bench area at Hale's direction, turning a public park into an impromptu crime scene. Not because Jamal or Aisha had committed anything, but because the Carver County Sheriff's Office now had to treat this as potential federal civil rights violation evidence preservation. A small crowd had gathered at a respectful distance, phones out, live streaming to TikTok, Instagram, Twitter/X. One teenager's clip, "Cop just got exposed as racist to ATF agents in the park," hit 1,200 views in the first 7 minutes. Another angle showed Kesler's face clearly when the badges came out, pure shock to panic transition in 4,000. That one jumped to 48,000 views by 3:40 p.m. At 3:38 p.m., Under Sheriff Paul Grayson arrived second in command of the entire agency. He was briefed in Hale's vehicle for 6 minutes. When he stepped out, his face was stone. He walked directly to Jamal and Aisha. "Special Agents Carter, I'm Under Sheriff Grayson. On behalf of Sheriff Delgado, I apologize for what occurred here today. This does not reflect the values or training of this agency. We are launching an immediate administrative and criminal referral investigation. The FBI's Civil Rights Section has already been notified by our liaison at 3:32 p.m. Aisha's response was measured but firm. "We appreciate the apology, Undersheriff, but words aren't accountability. We've seen too many cases where officers like Kesler get a slap on the wrist, a transfer, or early retirement. We expect full transparency, criminal referral if the facts support it, and systemic review of every stop he's made in the last 5 years." Grayson didn't flinch. "You'll have it. We're pulling his entire CAD and RMS history tonight. Every contact, every supplemental, every use of force if any existed. IA will have a preliminary report to the sheriff by end of next week." Meanwhile, the viral spread was accelerating. 3:47 p.m., first X post with the clip, 92,000 views, 1,400 likes, 320 retweets. Caption: "This cop thought he could profile 2 black people in a park. It turns out they were ATF agents. Watch him crumble." 3:55 p.m., same clip reposted by a civil rights influencer account with 1.2 million followers, 47,000 views in 8 minutes. 4:12 p.m. Local news stations breaking alert. Sheriff's deputy suspended after confrontation with federal agents in Birchwood Commons. Link included stills from the video. 4:28 p.m. TikTok duet videos started appearing, side by side of Kesler's aggressive stance versus the moment the badges flipped open. One version hit 180,000 views in 22 minutes, soundtrack to dramatic violin sting. By 5:00 p.m., the original teenager's livestream replay had been downloaded and re-uploaded to YouTube under titles like "Racist Cop Gets Instant Karma from ATF Agents Full Video." Views: 62,000 and climbing 4,000 per minute. Back at the scene, Kesler was escorted to a patrol car, not in cuffs but definitely not voluntarily. He sat in the back seat, staring at the floor mat while Vasquez drove him to the station for processing. Hale stayed behind to coordinate with ATF evidence techs who arrived at 5:15 p.m. to mirror Aisha's phone and collect additional witness statements from the 3 park visitors who had filmed from afar. At 6:03 p.m., the Carver County Sheriff's Office released its first public statement. Earlier today, a deputy was placed on administrative leave following an on-duty interaction with 2 federal agents in Birchwood Commons. The incident is under full investigation by professional standards and has been referred to federal authorities. The sheriff's office is fully cooperating and will provide updates as appropriate. Too late. The internet had already made its verdict. Before we continue, if you believe no one should have to carry a federal badge just to be treated like a human being in public, type "no badge needed" in the comments. Let's see how many agree. Jamal and Aisha finally left the park at 6:40 p.m. after giving recorded statements and signing initial complaint forms. They drove the 3 hours back to Indianapolis in near silence. Every few minutes, one of them would check their work phones, notifications exploding. Their supervisors had already called not to reprimand but to offer support. "You did exactly what we trained people to do," their SAC told Jamal. "Document, de-escalate, then dismantle." But as the highway lights blurred past, both of them kept thinking about the same thing. The dozens, maybe hundreds of people Kesler had pulled the same routine on over 17 years. People who didn't have credentials to flash. People who just had to swallow the humiliation, pay the ticket or the tow fee, and go home angry and smaller. That night, neither of them slept much. The real storm was only beginning. By 7:00 p.m. on July 9, 2022, the Birchwood Commons footage had already exploded across every major platform like wildfire in dry brush. The first full-length edit, stitched from Aisha's crystal-clear recording plus 2 bystander angles, hit YouTube under the title "Racist Sheriff's Deputy Humiliated by ATF Agents." He had no idea who he was messing with. The uploader, an anonymous account with just 14,000 subscribers, layered intense background music, slowed down shots of Kesler's face when the badges flipped open, and bold subtitles highlighting every damning phrase. By 7:14 p.m., it had 187,000 views. By 8:03 p.m., 412,000. By midnight, 1.14 million. Like-to-dislike ratio sat at 94/6. Comments were left open and flooded to 28,400 in the first 5 hours alone. On TikTok, the 15-second badge reveal clip went nuclear. 3.7 million views by 9:30 p.m. Hashtags, number ATF Karma, number Racist Cop, number Birchwood Commons, number Police Accountability, racked up a combined 14 million views overnight. One of the top duets, left side showing Kesler snarling, "You don't match the usual crowd." Right side, his instant pallor when the ATF gold flashed, pulled 9.2 million views and 1.8 million likes. Top comments read, "That's the exact second he realized his career just ended. 17 years of getting away with it gone in 17 seconds. If they didn't have badges, he'd still be out there doing this tomorrow." On X, formerly Twitter, the first viral post from a local activist account at Justice Watch IN gained 47,000 retweets and 192,000 likes by morning of July 10. Heavy hitters jumped in. At ACLU, 1.9 million followers posted a screenshot with the caption, "This is exactly why we fight qualified immunity." At Sean King wrote, "Another day, another cop who only respects power when it's aimed back at him." At The Root dropped, "Black excellence meets blue fragility." By 10:00 a.m. on the 10th, total cross-platform views topped 18 million. Google Trends for Raymond Kesler Sheriff spiked 14,800% in 24 hours. National media caught fire by morning. CNN ran a segment in the 8 a.m. block. Federal agents racially profiled by Indiana deputy in public park, sheriff's office in damage control. MSNBC gave it 12 minutes on Morning Joe. Even Fox tried to spin it softly, misunderstanding escalates into federal complaint, but their own panel admitted, "If the tape is legit, this looks terrible." By noon on July 10, the main YouTube upload crossed 4.8 million views. The channel gained 92,000 new subscribers in a single day. Meanwhile, the feds moved fast and quiet. At 7:45 a.m. on July 10, a 3-person DOJ Civil Rights Division team, 2 line prosecutors and 1 supervisory attorney, plus 2 FBI special agents from the Public Corruption Squad landed in the Indianapolis ATF field office. They received the full forensic copy of Aisha's recording. 4,000 video, 192 kbit/s uncompressed audio, embedded GPS metadata, precise timestamps from 2:48 and 12 seconds to 3:18 and 47 seconds. By 9:20 a.m., a federal preservation order was issued for every piece of Carver County equipment involved. Kesler's body cam, dash cam, radio logs, CAD entries, RMS reports, and the park's municipal CCTV covering the square. At 10:15 a.m., ATF's Office of Professional Responsibility formally opened case number 2022 in D-47, alleged pattern of civil rights violations by Carver County Sheriff's Deputy Raymond Kesler. The scope was immediately expanded beyond the single incident. By noon, they had pulled Kesler's full contact history for the past 60 months, 1847 documented field contacts. Of those, 1,312, 71%, involved individuals identified in reports as Black, Latino, Asian, Native American, or Middle Eastern, in a county where those demographics made up only 18% of the population. 0 criminal charges or citations resulted from 89% of those stops. The statistical red flag was glaring. By 2:00 p.m. on July 10, federal prosecutors filed notice of intent to seek grand jury subpoenas for all prior IA complaints against Kesler, 5 sustained for minor policy violations, 14 closed as unfounded, bodycam footage from 47 similar suspicious person calls in Birchwood Commons and adjacent affluent neighborhoods, 2018-2022. Deposition transcripts from 3 prior civil lawsuits against the sheriff's office where Kesler was named as a defendant, 2 settled quietly for $185,000 and $240,000 respectively. 1 dismissed on qualified immunity grounds. That afternoon the viral numbers kept climbing. YouTube main video, 7.2 million views by 6 p.m. TikTok aggregate under primary sound. 41 million views x mentions of Kesler ATF. 214,000 posts in 24 hours. Change.org petition titled Demand Criminal Charges for Deputy Raymond Kesler, End Racist Policing in Carver County. Launched at 3:47 p.m. and hit 87,000 signatures by midnight. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever been stopped, questioned, or made to feel like you didn't belong in a nice neighborhood just because of how you look? Drop your experience in the comments. And if this story hits hard, type justice if you think Kesler should face federal prison time. Back in Indianapolis, Jamal and Aisha spent the evening fielding calls from their chain of command. Their special agent in charge didn't chew them out, he praised them. You followed protocol to the letter. Observe, document, de-escalate, then expose. This isn't just your win, it's a blueprint for every agent who's ever been profiled off duty. Still, as they sat on their couch watching the view count tick upward on Aisha's phone, the same thought kept surfacing. All those people Kesler had targeted before today, the families who got followed home, the students who got accused of casing while studying in their own car, the delivery drivers ordered to hurry up and leave. None of them had badges to flash. None of them had a recording that went viral. They just had to endure, file a complaint that went nowhere, and carry the weight home. The public pressure was building, the federal case was building. And Raymond Kesler, sitting alone in his house under suspension, phone off, blinds closed, finally understood that 17 years of impunity had just collided with one very bad Saturday afternoon. The fallout was only getting started. The DOJ Civil Rights section didn't wait for public pressure to build, they wrote it. By July 12, 2022, just 3 days after the Birchwood Commons encounter, a federal grand jury in the Southern District of Indiana was seated in a sealed session. Prosecutors presented the core evidence in under 2 hours. Aisha's unedited 28-minute recording, Kesler's bodycam footage, which miraculously recovered after an initial malfunction claim, dashcam audio, dispatch logs showing the fabricated possible narcotics radio call, and statistical analysis of his 1847 field contacts over 5 years. The disparity was brutal. Stops of people of color were 3.9 times more likely to result in prolonged detention without citation or arrest than stops of white individuals in the same patrol zones. On July 14, the grand jury returned a sealed indictment. 1 count of deprivation of rights under color of law, 18 U.S.C. Section 242, for the July 9 incident, plus a 2nd count tied to a pattern and practice of similar violations spanning 2018-2022. Federal marshals arrested Kesler at his home at 6:17 a.m. No dramatic door kick, just quiet handcuffs on his front porch while neighbors filmed from windows. He appeared before a magistrate judge that afternoon, pleaded not guilty, and was released on $50,000 unsecured bond with conditions. Surrender passport, no contact with victims or witnesses, no law enforcement duties. The Carver County Sheriff's Office couldn't contain the damage. On July 15, Sheriff Delgado held a press conference flanked by Undersheriff Grayson and the county attorney. He announced, immediate termination of Deputy Raymond Kesler. Effective retroactive to July 9, placement of 3 additional deputies on paid administrative leave pending review of their involvement in prior Kesler-supervised shifts. External audit of the entire patrol divisions, stop data by an independent consulting firm. Contract signed with the NAACP Legal Defense, fund recommended group mandatory retraining for all 412 sworn personnel on bias-free policing. Fourth Amendment standards, and federal civil rights law. First session starting July 25. Creation of a civilian oversight board with subpoena power, to be seated by October 2022 behind closed doors. The county attorney quietly reached out to Jamal and Aisha's personal attorney, hired the day after the incident. The opening offer, $2.85 million settlement for civil rights violations, emotional distress, and punitive damages, plus full expungement of any mention of the stop from their records, though nothing existed to expunge. The Carters rejected it within 90 minutes. Their counter, $7.2 million plus binding policy reforms, public apology from the sheriff at a televised presser, and a commitment to release redacted versions of all prior Kesler complaints. By July 20, the viral numbers had plateaued but remained astronomical. Main YouTube video, 14.6 million views. TikTok sound usage, 112 million views across 47,000 plus videos. Hashtag number justice for the Carters, 1.4 million posts. Change.org petition, 412,000 signatures. Google search interest peak, still 92.0% above baseline. National conversation shifted. CNN ran a week-long series, When the Tables Turn, Federal Agents Profiled by Local Police. The New York Times published a 42-0-word front-page piece titled, "A Deputy's 17-Year Pattern Ends in One Afternoon, But What About the Victims Who Had No Badges?" MSNBC invited civil rights attorneys to debate qualified immunity reform. Even conservative outlets like The Federalist published op-eds calling for accountability regardless of politics. On August 3, 2022, the DOJ announced a formal pattern or practice investigation into the Carver County Sheriff's Office under 42 U.S.C. Section 14,141, now codified as 34 U.S.C. Section 12,601. The probe would examine not just Kesler but systemic failures. Inadequate supervision, flawed IA processes, racial disparities in stops documented at 3.71 ratio, and repeated failure to discipline repeat offenders. Kesler's criminal trial was set for February 2023. Prosecutors plan to call 14 witnesses, including Jamal and Aisha, Officer Vasquez, who testified truthfully about the scene, Sergeant Hale, and 3 prior victims from IA complaints who finally felt safe coming forward. The defense strategy was predictable: good faith mistake, he didn't know they were agents, no intent to deprive rights. The jury pool, drawn from a diverse urban district, wasn't likely to buy it. Meanwhile, the civil suit against the county moved forward. Discovery revealed 19 prior complaints against Kesler labeled unfounded despite bodycam evidence in 6 cases showing similar profiling language emails from a lieutenant in 2019. Let's keep this one low-key. Ray's a good street guy. Just needs reminders. A 2020 internal memo recommending Kesler for cultural sensitivity training. After the Asian jogger incident, training he never completed on September 28, 2022. The county agreed to a $6.4 million settlement with Jamal and Aisha, the largest single-incident civil rights payout in Indiana history at the time. Terms included public televised apology by Sheriff Delgado, aired live October 4, $1.2 million earmarked for community policing grants in affected neighborhoods, independent monitor for 3 years bodycam footage retention policy, extended to 730 days minimum annual public reporting of stop data by race/ethnicity. Jamal and Aisha donated $800,000 of the settlement to local civil rights organizations and victim support funds. Before we go any further, if you think departments should lose federal funding until they fix patterns like this, drop a fire in the comments. And share this if you want more people to see how one recording can change everything. Kesler's trial began February 6, 2023. On February 14, Valentine's Day, the jury deliberated for 5 hours and returned guilty verdicts on both counts. Sentencing came April 19, 41 months in federal prison, low end of guidelines due to no prior criminal record, but enhanced for pattern, 3 years supervised release, $10,000 fine, and lifetime bar from law enforcement. He reported to FCI Terre Haute on June 12, 2023. The Carver County Sheriff's Office implemented the DOJ consent decree in March 2024, one of only 14 active in the nation at the time. Stop disparities dropped 62% in the first 18 months of monitoring. But Jamal and Aisha never forgot the bigger picture. For every case that goes viral, thousands don't. They started speaking at police academies and community forums, always ending with the same line, "You shouldn't need a badge to be treated like a person." The story wasn't over, but for Raymond Kesler it was. On October 4, 2022, exactly 87 days after the Birchwood Commons incident, Jamal and Aisha Carter stood at a podium in the Indianapolis Federal Courthouse atrium for a joint press conference with DOJ officials, their attorney, and representatives from the NAACP and ACLU. The room was packed, 47 reporters, 12 camera crews, overflow crowd watching on screens outside. CNN, MSNBC, and local affiliates carried it live. The Carters had insisted on this as part of the settlement, a platform to speak unfiltered. Jamal went first, voice steady, eyes scanning the room. That Saturday in Birchwood Commons started like any other day off for us. A park bench. Iced coffees, a rare moment of peace after long weeks chasing violent offenders. But within minutes, we were reduced to suspects, not because of anything we did, but because of who we are. Officer Kesler didn't see two people enjoying public space. He saw threats, outsiders, criminals by default. He paused, letting it land. We had the tools to fight back, our badges, our training, our recording. But what about the father he followed home in 2015? The students he detained in 2018? The jogger he stopped in 2020? They didn't have federal authority. They just had to swallow it and move on. This isn't about us, it's about them, about every person who's ever been profiled and had no recourse. Aisha stepped up next, her tone professional but laced with quiet fire. I've spent my career in ATF professional standards investigating abuses of power. I've seen patterns like Kesler's in case after case. Unchecked bias leading to illegal detentions, false reports, destroyed trust. On July 9, we lived it. He violated our Fourth Amendment rights, fabricated suspicions, and escalated because we dared to assert our humanity. And the system protected him for 17 years until it couldn't anymore. She pulled out a stack of papers, redacted versions of prior complaints, now public per the settlement. These are just the ones we know about. 19 complaints dismissed as unfounded, emails burying investigations, memos excusing behavior as proactive policing. This isn't one bad apple, it's a poisoned orchard. We're grateful for the settlement, the reforms, the conviction, but accountability starts with transparency. End qualified immunity. Mandate independent oversight, make body cams and data public. Anything less is complicity. The queue and a lasted 28 minutes. One reporter asked, "Did you fear for your safety, Jamal?" Not from violence, from the system. From knowing how many times this ends worse for people without our privileges. Another, what message to other officers? Aisha, your badge is a trust, not a shield. Abuse it and it will turn on you. DOJ's lead prosecutor added. This conviction under Section 242 sends a message: color of law violations aren't internal matters, they're federal crimes. The presser ended with Jamal's closing. We didn't choose this fight, it chose us. But now that it's here, we won't stop until every park bench in America is safe for everyone, badge or no badge. If stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on real accountability. Let's zoom out to the national picture. According to DOJ data from 2014-2024, over 12,400 civil rights complaints against law enforcement were investigated federally. Only 3% resulted in convictions. Racial disparities in stops. Black Americans 2.7 times more likely to be stopped than whites. Latinos 1.9 times. Native Americans 2.4 times, per Stanford Open Policing Project 2023 analysis of 130 million stops. Qualified immunity blocked 79% of civil suits against officers from 2017-2023 Reuters investigation. Departments with civilian oversight boards saw 22% fewer use of force incidents. Camp Study, 2022. Bodycam programs reduced complaints by 17%, but only if footage is reviewed independently. Rand Corporation, 2021. From 2014-2024, taxpayers paid $3.2 billion in settlements for police misconduct. Washington Post database. 1,147 officers federally charged under Section 242 since 2000. 58% convicted, average sentence 27 months. States with bias training mandates. 38 out of 50, but only 14 require annual refreshers. NCSL 2024. Mental health calls mishandled. 23% of police shootings involved mental illness. Treatment Advocacy Center, 2023. Traffic stops as pretext. 42% of all drug arrests start with minor traffic violations. ACLU 2022. Youth impacted. Black teens 4.5 times more likely to be arrested than white peers for same offenses. Sentencing Project, 2024. Pattern investigations. DOJ opened 69 consent decrees from 2014-2024, 41 still active. Viral videos roll. 62% of federal probes since 2015 sparked by citizen footage. Pew Research, 2023. Officer turnover. Departments with high misconduct rates see 31% higher resignation rates. GAO 2022. Community trust. Only 48% of Black Americans trust police versus 72% of whites. Gallup 2024. Reform bills. 28 states passed police accountability laws. Postman's 2020. Federal George Floyd Act stalled in Congress. Training hours. Average U.S. officer gets 21 hours on de-escalation versus 58 on firearms. Police Executive Research Forum, 2023. Whistleblower protections. Only 19 states shield officers reporting internal misconduct. Whistleblower Aid Society, 2024. Economic cost. Misconduct lawsuits drained $1.8 billion from city budgets 2019-2023, Bloomberg City Lab. Global comparison, U.S. police kill at 28 times the rate of UK officers, BBC Analysis 2022. Positive change, departments with data transparency saw 19% trust increase, Vera Institute 2024. Future outlook, AI stop analysis pilots in 7 states reduce disparities by 14%, MIT study, preliminary 2024. These numbers aren't abstract, their lives disrupted, families broken, trust eroded. So before we wrap this up, let me ask you a few final questions to think about. What if Jamal and Aisha hadn't been agents? Would Kesler still have a badge today? How many more complaints does it take before a department acts? Why do we accept a system where your skin color determines your rights in a public park? And most importantly, what are you going to do about it? If you believe qualified immunity should be abolished nationwide, comment below with your thoughts. Type justice in the comments if you think every officer like Kesler deserves federal time. Share this story if you think millions need to see what real accountability looks like. Let me know in the comments if you've ever seen a pattern like this in your own town. Drop the city name and let's shine a light. Have you ever been treated unfairly by someone in power? Drop your answer in the comments. Your story could be the one that sparks change. If stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the next one. Stay safe out there.